So we have some giftaway winners. We have 2 FOs, 3 or 4 whips, and a bit of a story time. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela and this is the Angela Makes podcast. I bring you the podcast from just outside Belfast in Northern Ireland, and this is episode 15. So it's been 3 weeks. That's partly because it's been Easter and we went away for 4 days over Easter and then had family staying here for a little bit. So that was lovely. It was just lovely to be away. We got some good weather and we only went up to the north coast of Northern Ireland, so about an hour and a half from here, and yeah, it was just lovely. It was just lovely taking walks, going out for coffee, going out for tea. We got down, walked along the beach. It was just lovely. So that was really, really nice. If you've never seen some of the landscape around the north coast, I'll put some up because we took the long journey home. So I said it took us an hour and a half to get there. It took us about 6-7 hours to get home. Only because we stopped and we took walks and then we went on another little bit and stopped again. So I'll put some of the footage up because it was an absolutely beautiful day coming home and just looking over the coastline of Northern Ireland. It was really, really stunning. So that was 2 weeks ago. We were back to school. Work has been really busy, so I just haven't had a chance to podcast. I also have lost a bit. I wouldn't say I've lost my knitting mojo, but I think I'd got really stuck with a few projects that I just wasn't enjoying working on. And over the last couple of podcasts, you'll have noticed me saying I've had a really panic cast on. I have just cast on without abandon. But a lot of those projects were ripped out again. I really didn't get very far in them. So I think I've found a footing again. I decided to leave a lot of those projects alone and to cast on things that I knew I enjoyed working on. I also wanted to design a shawl myself. So I already have a few shawls on Ravelry. I have no intention of designing regularly. It's just whenever an idea comes to mind, or I buy a yarn that I really want to design something in, and it sparks the idea. So few random designs every now and again, and this was one of them. So if I start with finished objects, and as I say, I'll do a little bit more of the storytelling as we're going along. So first finished object, the last time I showed you this little cowl, it was the Ballyholme Cowl by Woolen Knots or Anne Tucker, and this was the one that I had done in fingering and mohair. And I did another one for my mum for the summer. I did it in a cotton yarn. So this is the cotton yarn, that's one of the colours. I don't seem to have the colour that I did hers in. She already has it, so I'll put a picture up. I think I was left with about 20 grams from a 100 gram skein. So it's a Hobbycraft, which is a craft store here in Northern Ireland. So it's 50% cotton, 50% acrylic. It is 215 meters per 100 grams, so DK weight, and it knits up beautifully. It knits up, even though there's cotton in it, and I'm realising that I'm really struggling knitting with cotton. It's lovely. So I'll put a picture up. I tried it on before I gave it to Mum. It's a beautiful corally pink colour. The pattern, as I said before, the pattern is really just these few rows at the bottom, but it has come out really crisp in the cotton acrylic yarn. And my mum is on oxygen, so whenever she goes outside, it just allows her to pull the cowl up over just to protect from wind and the elements and stops her from coughing. So the cotton acrylic means that she's not too warm over the summer as well. So I don't have the cowl that I did, but as I say, I'll put a few pictures up. And again, I think I knit it over 2 evenings. It is such a quick knit. So that has now been released. There is still the discount code that Anne gave us for this podcast until the end of May. So again, I'll pop that on the screen. But it really is, even in the cotton yarn, it's just so lovely for the summer. I could even imagine on summer evenings sitting outside. So as I said, Hobbycraft have this. It's more of a, that seems to be glowing a little bit. It's more of a dusky blue, and then a deeper blue, a white, there's a yellow and like a mustard. So I had got those for doing a tank top a few years ago and never did it. So I had that yarn in my stash, so I probably will do a few more cowls for the summer, because it was such a quick knit. The stitch definition was lovely, and as I say, while I don't like knitting with cotton yarn, the cotton acrylic mix didn't make it look, I think I've said this before, the cotton, when I knit with cotton, I feel like I can't knit. I feel like it's not even enough. But with that, it was beautiful. It was really, really beautiful. So that was my first finished object. My second finished object was my idea for a shawl / cowl. So this was something that I have had in mind for a while. I bought yarn from Molten Yarns, and it was called Heartbreaker. And it was really one of the first purchases that I had made of hand-dyed DK weight yarn. And I bought it and I had 2 skeins of it, and I didn't know what to do with it, but I loved the colour. So I think it's been sitting there for maybe 2.5 years. And then this idea, once I got so frustrated this week, so part of the frustration, wasn't even this week, it was the week before, part of the frustration was the test knit that I was working on. So I was working on Journey Through Yarn Harbour Vest. Now this is nothing nothing on the pattern. Well, it is on the pattern. I got to the point where I was struggling picking up. So it was a vest top, picking up for the sleeves and picking up, or it wasn't sleeves, but picking up for the ribbon and picking up for the neckline. And the ratios weren't working out. And in the test knit group, somebody had just said, well, do what makes you comfortable. And I suppose I started to think about why I test knit. And if it was a pattern that I had purchased and I wanted the neckline wider, or I wanted the neckline tighter, or the sleeve depth, or whatever, yes, I would. I would just cast on the numbers. I would pick up the number of stitches that didn't pucker, had the top sitting properly, had the neckline sitting. I don't like a really tight close up. I prefer something just a little bit looser. So I do sometimes shuffle the stitches and give myself just that little bit more space. But in a test knit, I started to think, but that's not the purpose of a test knit. The purpose of a test knit is to test the instructions and to see, do those work? So for most people that will pick that pattern up, will those instructions work? And then if I just picked up whatever I felt was right, that's going against the pattern. And as a pattern writer, you want to make sure that, okay, yes, there will be patterns that are maybe a little bit more complex. There will be patterns that are easier, beginner. But most patterns, if someone can read through a set of instructions, should be easy enough to tackle. There should be, if you can knit and purl and cast on, there really shouldn't be a huge amount that you can't tackle if you want to, which is something totally different. So I'm an educator, and I have been an educator for 25 years now. And I really take pride in how I set out the work for my students to ensure that they can learn, and that they can learn irrespective of what their baseline is. So irrespective of what they know now, how can I get them to a point where A, they know a little bit more, and B, they've enjoyed getting there. And that journey may be different for every student that is in my class. So the classes that I teach can range from 70 pupils to 470 pupils. So I have a very varied batch of students that I am working with. And I think that this is where test knitting for me has taken a different path. And I am really passionate, because of my day job, that those instructions help anyone, and that pattern is enjoyable to knit. So all of that, sorry, I went off on a complete tangent there. All of that to say that I had got so stuck in my own, but why am I test knitting, and why am I doing this, and what is it that I'm supposed to be picking up on in this pattern? If I'm the tester, what do I want for anyone else that's purchasing that pattern to be able to do? Nothing to do with how the pattern's designed. As I said, I really, really loved the 3 cables along the front. I loved that it was a vest. There's a couple within the test group that have already finished, and they're beautiful. They're stunning, stunning garment. But to get to that garment, what do the instructions need to be to ensure that it sits in that way? And not that I just add the stitches that I want to add, but that I'm actually given feedback on the written words as such. So in all of that, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm being a little bit picky. Maybe I need to go back and think about what it means to actually write a pattern, because I hadn't written one in quite a while. I think the last pattern I released was 18 months, 2 years ago. So I started to think through now, okay, a jumper, a sweater, a tank top, whatever it is, vest top, whatever it is that you are designing is very different to a shawl or a cowl, and I get that, but you still have to think through the instructions that your reader is going to read. The other thing that I'll say just before I show the shawl, there are a lot of designers, the more that I read through different patterns, some designers like a lot of detail. Some knitters don't like that detail, and I think it's nice, certainly from my point of view, to see the detail, because I like to understand, well, how did you get to those numbers, and how, if I wanted to change that, how do I change that? So how do I make the neck wider without ruining the rest of the garment? Is it okay just to make the sleeves longer, or do I need to add in more decreases, or whatever the case may be? And sometimes I like that level of detail to be able to adapt my own pattern, because I don't necessarily, I'm not a designer, a clotheswear designer. So having those little snippets of where the designer came from is quite nice, but having it kind of that you can still go to the instructions without having to read through all of that to work out what the instructions are. So I like the detail, but I like the separation of the detail. So as I say, I'd got to the point where I thought, right, well, if I try to deconstruct what I would like a pattern to look like, and I actually really, really enjoyed the process of, I got a stitch that I really liked. I had this yarn from Molten Yarns that I really liked, and the two just came together. So this is the shawl. And as you can see, the yarn pulls in different ways, but I actually really like that. Really, really like it. And this is the pattern, or this is the stitch. The other thing that I wanted was that the stitch was exactly the same. So that's the side that I showed. if I turn it over, it's exactly the same on the other side. So I wanted a shawl that you didn't need to worry, was it the right way round? Was it the wrong way round? I wanted a 3-stitch I-cord, and I wanted more of the crescent shape. So this was the Heartbreaker by Molten Yarns. It is about 78 inches in wingspan, and I think it's 12 or 13 in depth. And if I put it on, I can tie it up, I can wear it in different ways, and it's nice and cozy. The other thing that I wanted out of the stitch was that it was squishy, so that in the winter when I wear this, I can pull it even tighter around my neck and it is squishy. At that point I could nearly wrap it again. Or at this time of year it's not quite deep enough, but I can sort of cover my shoulders enough with that shawl. So that was the idea, and I started to jot down my instructions, and I started to jot down how I would like it written, and as I say, I really enjoyed the process. It wasn't to pick at the other pattern in any way, and I want to be very clear about that. I just had got stuck with why I was testing. Why am I testing patterns? What is it that I want to give back? What is it that I think a tester should be? So from the test perspective, you're using your yarn, you're taking up your time, you're choosing to do the test, but I don't think that's overly recognised. Some knitwear designers absolutely do. Some put an awful pressure on the deadline. They don't give you enough time to finish the garment. If there's problems with the pattern, you almost get a really sharp reply that it's essentially your fault, not the designer's fault, in the way that the pattern's written. And again, I think that's why testing as a designer is so important, because if you have written, and this is coming from my education and the way that I have learned over the years, when you are presenting work to a student, to a knitter, you have to understand that each one of those people will read it differently. And as you design more patterns, as you write more educational documents for your students to take in, you realise that there's tweaks that you can make that then make it more straightforward every time you write a pattern. That if you put that piece of instruction in, it just makes it that bit easier. So I've had a lot of time to think over this. I'm definitely not stopping testing. I enjoy testing, I enjoy the process, but I am going to be a lot more picky what I test. I'm finding sweaters, vests, all that sort of thing very time consuming and not enjoyable. Or maybe I've just been in the wrong tests. But the shawls, the cowls, like some of the twin set and pearl ones I've been in a lot of those. The groups are great fun. The chat, seeing all the colours, working on the pattern. If you've any issues, Joe gets back really, really quickly. It's mainly Joe that I've tested for. And it's just a lovely collaborative environment to be in. But some of the others I'm not enjoying, and that's not why I'm knitting. And it's not why I'm testing. So, as I said, this has got me out of my lull. it allowed me to have a reversible shawl. It allowed me to have my 3-stitch bind or 3-stitch I-cord, a scarf, a shawl that is long enough to wrap around and knot, and it was 2 skeins of DK yarn. As I say, that is pulling quite differently, but that doesn't bother me at all, and I actually like this bit in the middle here. I love the way that that's showing up in the yarn too. I've ended up with these kind of patterns at both sides, so it looks like that happened on purpose. But I love it. I have only steam blocked this at the minute, but it's so squishy and it's so lovely. So as I say, that was an incredibly long 15 minutes there trying to explain how I had got to this stage. And from here, they're the only 2 things that I've finished. From here, I will move into my whips, because a whip is another part of this pattern. So what I also wanted to do was to have a cowl. So I've said it before, I love those shawls, but I also love one that I can pull over my head and that I don't need to touch. It doesn't fall off, it doesn't unravel. So I took the same stitch pattern. There was a shawl that I had, it was a Casey Knits shawl, which I absolutely loved, but I would needed to have added a few more rows. It was a triangular shawl, I'll put a photo up. It was a triangular shawl, but I would have needed a few more rows, because when I pulled it round me, it was forever falling off, and I had put it in the drawer and I wasn't wearing it. However, the yarn was particularly sentimental, I think is the right word, only because they were book based. So one of the yarns, this is one yarn by Giddy Ant Yarns, and it's Courage Dear Heart. It's one of their Narnia colourways from a couple of years ago, and I love this. And the other one is a Giddy Yarns, and it was from their Winnie the Pooh collection. So this is Pooh Sticks. So it kind of had all of the characters in it. So I had taken out the other shawl quite a while ago, and again I was looking to reuse that yarn because I love it. So this is going to be it's nearly there. I'm just on the decreases at the minute to create the back. So this is again the same stitch, same in reverse, I-cord, 3-stitch I-cord bind off, and the same at this edge, and then you will stitch it together at the back using whatever, because you don't see it, so it really doesn't matter. You'll stitch it together at the back and it'll be triangular. Isn't that Pooh Sticks yarn gorgeous? I really love the colours that come up in that. So again, 2 skeins of DK. Now I'm gonna be the Heartbreaker yarn. I had 20 grams left. I will have more of this left, but I still needed more than 100 grams to make this cowl work. So if you'd knit a sweater and had bits left, you could certainly do put a few of them together that matched and create this out of scraps. So as I said, I have also enjoyed the process of moving from the shawl into the cowl and the different instructions that will be. So my intention is hopefully a few of you would test it for me. I will put it on I'll maybe make a quick short here. If I might not have the pattern ready before the next 2 weeks. I'll put it in my next podcast. I'll put the link down below and I'll have it on my Instagram as well. So as long as I have a couple of people to test the shawl, a couple of people to test the cowl, then I'm happy enough with that. You could do 4-ply and mohair. You could do 4-ply and the likes of the Malabrigo lace that I use. You could do just a 4-ply and make it bigger. I do want to work out and add a 4-ply version, particularly for the shawl. I'm not keen on 4-ply in these because I don't think they're cozy enough, and then I kind of feel they're pointless around your neck. But that might just be me. So if you would like to see this in a 4-ply, let me know. But I definitely am going to do this in a 4-ply because you would only need one skein for the size that it's at the minute. But you could make it deeper and use 2. I might need to change the increase and decrease rate. But so, as I said, shawl, they will all be in one pattern. I'm not creating 2 different patterns and having different prices for the different patterns. They will both be in the same pattern. You will get the shawl and the cowl. And yeah, I've no timeline or date on it. As I say, I would like testers, but I'll do that in my next podcast. So that has got me out of my knitting slump. So what else have I been working on? I have been working on the Lite Bright that I showed you the last time. So again, I had been really enjoying that pattern. I have now split for sleeves. Hasn't that yarn? Isn't that beautiful? It just does remind me of beaches around Northern Ireland. And the colours, it's beautiful. So the first one that I used was this with the browns and the blues in it. And I had just joined in this all blue one. So these were Irish Artisan Yarns DK weight. And if I can, I think it's maybe easier on the back, you can start to see where I'm starting to add that in. So there is a fade within the pattern itself, and you work through that fade. It also gives you the matte. So they had 5 different colours that they wanted to use. So it gives you the math depending on how many colours that you're using and how many rows that will mean if you get gauge. If you don't get gauge, it also gives you the calculation to do that. But this is lovely. It's not quite a raglan in that you are having this deeper neckline, which I think will be really lovely as well. But it's gorgeous. Doesn't look like much at the minute, but those colours are coming up really, really nice on camera. So I know I had said that I bought the cashmere yarn from AliExpress. I also bought these. So I got a pack. I think this was £12, £11. Not sure. But I know I got the barber cords and I think they were 14 for 3. And I have a full reel. I don't know if you can see at the bottom of that, but there's a full reel here. I'm not sure what the meterage is on this, but there is a huge amount. So you can cut your own length for sleeves, for round the body of the sweater, or if you're using it for a shawl or a cowl to hold while you're using the needles on something else. But it does also have, so you can put it in your needles. You'll not see that on camera, but you can, the same way with you can with barber cords, and you get these in a pack to hold them if you're putting the project away for a while. But as I say, I think I'll put the link down below if I can find it. But I thought that was great value. Because I'm always using the needles for something else, or I don't have enough barber cords for the couple of things that I have. So if you're like me and you have lots and lots of projects on the go, this was really useful. So that was the Lite Bright by Wool and Pine. Really, really enjoying it. And I'll keep working on that, because now that I'm down here, although it's just knitting in the round, it's also a little bit of interest because you're following the fade. So that was that. Then I had a conversation with Brenda Brayfield on Ravelry. She'd got in contact with me. Brenda is a knitwear designer based in Canada, but she was originally born here in Northern Ireland. So she had reached out to me because she had caught my podcast. And I also watched the Ruth Loves to Knit podcast, and Ruth, being from Northern Ireland, had also talked about Brenda, and I had got one of Brenda's patterns. I think it was the Ballyholme shawl, but I'd never actually knit it. So at the minute, when I went on to her Ravelry store, because I hadn't been on in a while, I realised that she's knitting, is it Small Possibilities? So it's part of her Petite Possibilities shawl collection. She names them after towns and cities here in Northern Ireland. And there was one that really caught my eye. Now I am also, so she has 7 of these out at the minute. I am test knitting the 8th one for Brenda, but this isn't the test knit. This is the Rostrevor Shawl. And I just really loved the stitch pattern in this. And it's a really mindless knit. So I have a good bit done. I am using Drops Flora. This is colour 21. Drops Flora is 210 meters per 50 grams, 65% wool, 35% alpaca, and I'm doing it on a 3.5. And it's coming up really, really lovely. Just a nice pink shawl for over the summer. Something a little bit lighter. Brenda's patterns are one of those detailed ones. So she gives you lots of information and lots of how-tos, but to actually follow the pattern, it's very clear. It's very, very clear. Here's what you're following. You have tick boxes. You can use them or not use them. You could just print off the part of the instruction that you need and not the rest, but so detailed, really nice explanations, really lovely patterns. So I'm loving that. I stole one of my bags to do it. But yeah, absolutely loving that. And hopefully the next time I podcast, I will have the test knit finished and it will be released and I'll be able to show you it as well. I'm not sure if I can or can't. I hadn't asked Brenda, so I'm not going to show it in this particular one. But it's gorgeous as well. It's really, really lovely. And they're quite quick. So that was Brenda Brayfield. If you go on and have a look, the Petite Possibilities are lovely. So as I say, the Rostrevor one is really nice. The Lurgan Shawl, what was the other one I really liked? Bambridge had a really nice texture in it. The Rathlin Island one again was lovely, and the Dunluce Shawl I thought was really, really, all of them are pretty. They're just the ones that popped for me, I suppose, but they're quite small ones. As I say, Brenda has the most beautiful large shawls as well. Now that I'm on, it was the Ballyholme that I had purchased before, but there's one there, Always Better Together. It's really pretty as well, actually. So yeah, there's some really lovely shawls and scarves, I suppose, and ponchos and different bits and pieces. So her Ravelry store is lovely. So I'll link that down below as well. And then the last thing that I've been working on just to get me out of the knitting slump was another twin set and purl pattern. So I was watching the girls' most recent and the previous podcast, and they had mentioned they were thinking of doing a Lady Violet Cowl. Now, in the last podcast last week, they also said that they're going to add in, is it the Sparkling Fountain? Yeah, the Sparkling Fountain sweater. I think they're adding in to the mix as well, and it's so pretty. I'll put a picture up of it. So because I loved the Lady Violet one that I had done, Rachel had said, what about a short sleeved one? And I thought, oh, that would be nice. So I cast that on. So I am using the Drops Nord in colour 20. It is 170 metres per 50 grams, and it's 45% alpaca, 30% polyamide and 25% wool. So you could use that for socks as well, actually. And I'm holding it double with the Yarn Smith's Kid Mohair Silk. So it's 210 metres per 25 grams. This is shade 3428. No, it's 212 metres per 25 grams. And it's 74% kid mohair and 26% silk. So those two together are giving me, whoops, I'll get rid of, I need stitch stoppers on this because I'm using too small a needle, just till I get a few more increases and then I'll go up. Isn't that lovely? The way that colour is marling together. And that's the start. You couldn't really see it in the dark one that I had used before, but you're really going to be able to see the definition down the front of the sweater. So that's coming up lovely, and that was just one evening's work. As I say, I'd got so frustrated this last few weeks, and I want to be clear again, it wasn't just to do with that test knit, it was test knits in the round and how I had felt over the last few that I have taken part in. As I say, you're using your own yarn, you're using your own time, and some designers don't even send you the final pattern, and personally I feel that's the least that could be done, that you get that final pattern so that you know all of the updates and all of the changes. I know that you have the test one, but not necessarily the final version. You do put in a lot of time and effort, and I get it that some knitters just don't want to do that, and I understand why. I do enjoy testing, but yeah, I think the more conversation that we have around this, the better that that whole test knit experience can be, because it is very varied and very different, and you just don't know what you're getting into until you're in it, and then you sort of feel, well, I can't come out of this. You almost feel like you've signed up to a job. I can't come out of this, but actually I'm starting to realise you can, because although you've signed up to it, you're not getting paid for it. So I think test knitting should be for the fun and the enjoyment of it. That is what knitting is for. So I had to find my spark again. So I did that by creating my own patterns and by going back to patterns that I absolutely love knitting on. So the Lady Violet I had loved. I did a little bit on the Lite Bright, and I was really enjoying that shawl by Brenda Brayfield. It was just so lovely and so repetitive, that it was coming together really quickly. So they're my finished objects, my whips, my rant about test knitting. I would be really interested in, if you've test knit before, what your thoughts below are, because patterns need test knit. If you're going to put it out there and you haven't had somebody read through your pattern, there are going to be mistakes. We're all human. That's going to happen. You've maybe miscounted stitches, miscounted rows, put in a wrong measurement. That's going to happen. So getting a test knit is really important. But I just really started thinking and pondering over what that should look like within the knitting community. So yes, apologies for that rant in this particular podcast, but I thought it was important to talk about, because it's something that I do. I won't stop doing, but I am going to be more thoughtful as to what I apply for. So to end on the fun bit, the two prizes that I had for the giftaway The first one was this bag, which is to say I had stolen the other one that I had knit, so that's it all. And I have had 2 shawls, the start of 2 shawls in this over the last couple of weeks. So that is the first prize, and I think I had said that you would get the sock blocker in those. Do you know, I can't remember. So this is the sock blocker. You get the toe with the size. They run from 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44 and 45, 46. So there's 6 sizes, and you pop it in and then you can take it out and put the next one in. Now, as I've said, we are looking at adding an extension here to make it longer. This will do up to 10 centimetres, so about 4.5 inches of sock, which is typically all I knit. The print that we use a 3D printer for these, and the bed that we print onto, this is kind of the longest we can do, but we are looking at creating this on the top so that you can pop in another extension. So I have 3 different colours. So when I announce who has won this, if you let me know what colour you would like. So there's the blue, the purple and the pink. And I will send you a pack of the sock blockers with the bag. Okay, so I will put it on screen. The winner of that particular one was Mr. Paul's wife. So I'll put the comment up, but she had talked about the shift cowl. I love the shift cowl. It is such a beautiful pattern. I have done it a couple of times now, and it's so cozy. It just sits really, really nice around your neck. So that's what one of the things that she had been working on over Easter. And as I say, I love the shift cowl. It's by Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits. So if you let me know, I will obviously, I won't contact you in this podcast. I will also put my email below, so you can either email me or contact me on Instagram with your address, and I will send this to you. The second one was this popper pouch, and it had the new sock ruler. So again, what I had said was I was struggling to fit my sock ruler into my project bags. So my husband had designed, I can't do back to front. My husband had designed so that you can have, now this one is a little bit more difficult to read, especially on the camera, and it just comes apart and clicks together, so that you can put it in, and it does fit into that bag. I've had 2 socks in this, and I've had a shawl, the start of a shawl in this, so it's a good size bag. The winner of that is Jane's Caris Brick 6986. So again, I will put an image up of her YouTube name, and she was working on the John shawl over Easter. So again, it's one of the ones in my list that I haven't got to, but it's a twin satin pearl pattern, and you know how I feel about twin satin pearl patterns. So I hope you've enjoyed working on that, and everyone else that commented, thank you so much. There were some really lovely ideas. There's some really lovely patterns that people are working on, whether it's crochet. I think there was a couple of people mentioned embroidery and cross stitching. It was just lovely to read, really, really nice to read and to reply to those comments. So please keep commenting on this one, because it was lovely to have that conversation. So Mr. Paul's wife and Jane's Caris Brick 6986. If you get in contact with me, I will get these sent out to you. Oh, what I should say, Jane, if that is your name, if you also let me know within the sock ruler, you can also choose between the 3 colours, so the pink, the purple and the blue. If you let me know what colour, I will get that printed for you and sent with the bag. And that is me for this week. Thank you so much for following along, especially this ranty, test-knit, opinionated podcast. I will hopefully be back to normal the next time, but I would really be interested in your comments below if you have test-knit. Whatever you're working on, please continue to enjoy. Our knitting, our crafting has to be our release. It shouldn't be something that gets us frustrated. So whatever it is that you're working on, I hope that you enjoy. Within Northern Ireland, we are having really lovely weather at the minute, which is nice to see. So enjoy the weather if you're in this part of the world, and I will see you next time. Bye.